Hey everybody. We're finally at the end of this journey of stripping her out from really grown out, and now we're down to beautiful jacket. It's a nice length. Everything is all set and ready to go. I could show this dog. All that's left to do is finish the head. So, as you may remember, her head was super long and super shaggy, and you know, if we stripped it all at the same time, it would all just come back at the same time. It would be difficult for me to strip it all out. It would be uncomfortable for me to strip it all out at one time, and she'd probably end up with a bald spot on top of her head too. So what we did was we used the Andis de-shedding tool, very dull, as always. Dig in the dirt with a new one, put it in your dishwasher, do all the things to make sure it is not sharp anymore. It is dull, so that it will pull hair instead of cut. But every 2 weeks for the last, 2 months now, I've been raking a little bit of this hair on the top of her head. That debulks it, that gets some new hair coming in. And every 2 weeks that I've done this, when I was done raking, I'd pull back the hair and say, oh, there's still no layer underneath. But today, there's a beautiful layer of hard hair underneath this long stuff. So today's the day to finally pull this shaggy little top knot off this dog. And we will have a beautiful, beautiful head skull cap underneath. So I'm using I call it a stone. This one's metal, but there's others you can use. You could also use a stripping knife if you're careful not to break coat with it. You could use another kind of stone, a pumice stone, for gripping. This one doesn't work quite so well, isn't as comfortable for me for this job. It's a little bulky. You could also use your fingers, especially if you put a little ear powder in this hair to make it a little grippier. This is good if you're, building hand strength still. This finger plucking, remember, is your wax on, wax off exercise to build your hand strength, build your dexterity. The more you do with your fingers, then the easier it will be to transition to doing it with a tool, because you'll have the technique of practicing pulling back, not moving your wrist, only moving your shoulder and your elbow. All right, so I'm going to go back to the metal textured tool. Just little by little, I'm just going to pull that layer right off. Remember, if your dog gets fussy with you, you're probably pulling too much at a time or too fast. Right away, I could tell it was pretty subtle, and I changed what I was doing right away. But my excitement for this was making me go a little bit faster than she was comfortable with, and I felt her pull away a little. So that was my cue to slow down and be more present with her. Remember, grooming is something we want to do with the dog, not to the dog. At least if we want to have a cooperative dog. Good girl. All right, now I've got this little bit of transition area here between the skull cap and the clippered area. If I just leave that and thinner it, that fuzzy line where there's no banded hair, that solid gray, will slowly start to migrate up the head and not look as good. So I'm gonna gently lift just small amounts of hair and maybe pull a little bit of that. That might be a good time for a stripping knife, because if I break a little of it and pull a little of it, that's not a big deal, since I'm going to be transitioning that with thinning shears anyway. Good. Good girl. Thank you. Oh my gosh, I've been waiting for months for her pretty little head to be showing. I mean, I've gotten some comments that she's been kind of cute with the little mop top, but it wasn't the look that I wanted or that I was going for. But the nice thing to remember hair grows at the speed hair grows. And it does grow back. And it won't, neither me nor the dog died or anything like that because I had to leave her with long hair on the top of her head. It wasn't really that big a deal, even though I did feel a little like people might be judging me a little bit or looking at like, oh, what are you doing with that dog? Don't you know how to groom your dog? Yeah, I do know how to groom my dog, but I'm grooming more for her comfort and for a long-term outcome than I am to try to make it look a certain way for other people. Good girls. I'm just getting the last of this long fuzz off. There's still a little bit of fuzz, a very short fuzz layer here because raking over time, you know, does cut a little bit of the hair, and that'll be easy to fix. In 2 weeks, that fuzz layer will be really easy to see, and I'll just go back over it real quick with the stone and pull it off, and then that'll grow back in as harder hair too. Now, since I've been doing the raking every 2 weeks for a couple of months now, I won't have the problem anymore, if I keep up with it, of there being no coat underneath when I strip. So I still want to keep to pretty much a 2-week schedule to maintain her head, because the head grows quite fast and it'll get away from you before you know it. Now this little bit right in the middle, some of that I can strip, and some of it I can use the thinning shears on. I kind of do a little bit of a mixture. I like to have some salt and pepper growing up along the stop, but not too much, because if I keep pulling this hair down and down and down, then it makes the salt and pepper, the banded hair, start down her nose, and it makes her muzzle look short in the end. So I only want to do it for a little bit of color, and then again, the stripping knife, it's okay if a little bit of it breaks. Now we've got a little bit of fan left here, so let me grab my thinning shears. Yeah, good girl. I'm so happy you look like you again. Finally. Just a little bit of trimming right between the eyes. I'm not going for perfect today. I had the one goal, really, which was to finish the head. And so her face, doing her face perfect, will come on a different day. It's a little bit of a rough draft just to make sure I clear her eyes so she can see good. All right, excellent. Do a little bit of thinning right here so I can see the contour of her head. She'll need some clipper work done. I can do that soon. If you're wondering how to do the clipper work on the face of your dog, I do have a course for that, and I've put a link to it and to the trailer for it in the description or the comments. And it teaches everything you need to know about what tools to use, how to use the tools to do the face, the feet, the privates, and some basic scissor work as well. So really good maintenance course to get you started if you want to learn more about that. Okay, now, like I said, boy, she looks good right now. This coat is nice and tight. It's a really good length. If I wanted to take her in the ring right now, it'd be just about perfect length. But you know what? I better have my entries in already, because since we stripped it all out at once, it's all going to grow in at one time, and in a month it's going to start to be too long, and there's not going to be anything underneath it because I stripped it all out at once. And that is the problem with stripping it all out at once and then trying to show. It's hard to maintain it, and you know, you have a real tight window for when the dog is in competitive coat, and if that weekend she's not in competitive behavior, or you're a little off or something like that, you know, you might miss the opportunity. So the next thing we're going to do with her is, next series is going to be how to transition a coat with no layers into a coat with layers. And that's how we prolong a show coat and give ourselves more time with a competitive window to show the dog. All right, I'll see you then. Thanks, honey.